I have here 2 pounds of super firm tofu. I'm using the super firm variety because that's really gives a really nice texture. If you have the extra firm one, you'd have to press it for a little bit longer perhaps. And I'm making this for a family of 6, so you can easily reduce this recipe in half. So what I'm going to do is take the tofu out and wrap it in a few layers of paper towel, and then I'm going to put something heavy on top, and I'm using a cast iron and a marble mortar here, but you can use anything that's heavy, and then just let it sit for about 35 to 45 minutes. And after that time, you can see that the paper towel gets soaked with water, so it absorbs a lot of the water. And then I'm cutting it first lengthwise into half, and then I'm cutting it into these small cubes, but you can make it any shape or size that you like. I'm going to transfer all my cut tofu into a large bowl, and I'm using 1 tablespoon of Bragg's liquid aminos, but you can also use soy sauce instead of the Bragg Aminos. So 1 tablespoon of that with half a teaspoon of ground black pepper and just half a teaspoon of ground mustard. And I'm just going to slightly mix this carefully. I don't want to break the tofu, so I'm just kind of flipping it over and not using any spatula. I just want to coat all the tofu with the Bragg Aminos and the mustard and ground black pepper. And then I'm air frying these. I'm putting it in my air fryer wire rack, and I want to keep this as a single layer. I don't want the tofu to be too crowded, and I'm putting this in the air fryer at 375 degrees Fahrenheit for about 14 minutes, and I'll show you what they look like when they come out. Next, I'm taking 2 medium-sized oranges, and I'm going to just zest these, and that gives me about 3/4 tablespoon of orange zest. This gives a very orangey flavor, so if you don't want that, you can just skip the orange zest. This is what the tofu looks like after the 14-minute mark in the air fryer. As you can see, the top are really nice and crunchy, so I'm just going to flip these over, and I like to just also individually flip them over so that all the tofu is nice and firm on all the sides. And after I do that, this goes back into the air fryer at 375 degrees again for an additional 14 minutes, and I'll show you what it looks like when they're done. So next, in a bowl, I have 1.5 cups of orange juice. This is freshly squeezed juice, but you can also use the store-bought one. And to that, I'm adding the 3/4 tablespoon of orange zest. You can skip the orange zest if you don't like it to be too orangey. I'm adding 2 tablespoons of the Bragg liquid aminos, or you can use soy sauce if you like. And to that, I'm adding 1/3 cup of, I'm using coconut sugar, but you can use brown sugar or regular sugar, followed by half a teaspoon of ground mustard and half a tablespoon of finely chopped ginger. And I'm just going to whisk this all together. And we're using no oil in this recipe. So here's what the tofu looks like after an additional 14 minutes in the air fryer. It's nice and crispy on all sides, very chewy, and this gives the tofu a very nice texture, and it becomes a little bit softer in the sauce, but not quite. As you can see, this is nice and crispy on the outside and still soft in the inside. A lot of texture in the tofu. So now we move on to making our sauce. But before that, in a small bowl, I have 1 tablespoon of cornstarch, which I'm going to mix with 1 tablespoon of water to make a cornstarch slurry. This helps to thicken our sauce. So I'm just going to mix this together. So I have our slurry ready, I have our sauce ready. So in a large pan that's going on medium-high heat, I'm going to add my sauce and let it come to a boil. So when it comes to a boil, I'm going to add my cornstarch slurry, and the cornstarch slurry really starts to thicken up, so you need to keep stirring this. And you can reduce it a lot if you don't like too much of a sauce, but I like it to be a little bit saucy. So I'm adding my tofu in, and I'm just gonna let the tofu sit in the sauce and kind of simmer on medium heat. And once I have the sauce reduced to the consistency I want, I can reduce the heat to low and let it just simmer, and then turn the heat off. And this is really it. This is a really great fresh tofu recipe, easy to make, and absolutely no oil in this. So you can garnish this with anything that you like, but I like to use roasted sesame seeds to garnish it. So I hope you like this recipe. If you haven't tried it yet, do give it a try. And as always, say a little prayer, share the love, and I'll see you in the next video.